Hey everyone, this is Lorcana. Welcome back to my channel. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about my top deck lists of week 1, whether they are deck lists that I've compiled together or have drawn inspiration from other amazing Disney Lorcana creators. And I'll make sure I try and apply or try and give credit to all the creators I drew inspiration from when deck building. However, the big websites I of course use are Dreamborn, Inkdex, Twitter, Facebook, as well as ways to help me gain inspiration for my own deck building process, just because rather than reinventing the wheel, it's always really cool to see how other amazing and very competitive Lorcana players are stacking or creating their decks and then going from there. So again, these are just the week 1 deck lists. Of course, these will change as the metagame continues to evolve. Of course, the game's only been out for like, what, 2 days, this new set, but I still think that we already are getting a really good idea of where we are landing in terms of what the tier lists are looking like and what the meta is looking like. However, I'm sure that like last set when Chroma Dogs just spawned out of nowhere, that we will have things again that just kind of spawn or, you know, come evolve out of deck lists that are being built right now. So these are the week 1 deck lists. So for starters, this is my Amber Sapphire Aggro list that I've currently been playing, that I've been having a lot of fun with. I do think it's on par with the Princess list I talked about in a previous video, so you can definitely go check that one out. They do mostly the same thing. However, the Princess list utilizes the Queen Sensor Core, since there's a few more princesses in that list, and Queen characters, while this deck list utilizes the Pongo as a way to draw into other characters. There are 60 characters in the deck, so Pongo will never miss. Yeah, this deck list is pretty cool. We use Ludwig von Drake as a way to get rid of those spooky scary cards or spooky sight cards. We use Daisy Duck, Anna, Darling Deer, Alice as ways to go fast. We have cards like Raja, Tiana, Rapunzel as ways to protect our board, whether that's through bodyguard or damage reduction, or just by providing our characters with you know, the Rapunzel support that's quite broken. I think it's really epic, and I think she's really strong. She works really well with Elanwee, so you'll see we have Elanwee here as well. We've got quite a few hero characters to help our Anna, Braving the Storm, you know, go a little bit faster. And we also have Darling Deer as well, who essentially, it says here, when you play this character, chosen character gets +2 lore this turn. So she's very strong in the sense that if you're getting very close to the finish line and you have this card in hand, you should think of her essentially as like a go-go, where you just drop her off at the end and then you just win the game. Aurora, Alice, Fergus McDuck as ways to ward our board. Just a lot of really cool synergy in this deck list, and I just think that it's very fast. I think on the play, it's basically like a win. On the draw, of course, it's a little bit of a harder time to get across the finish line, as most Amber Sapphire decks are. But again, if you're just going really fast, if you're applying pressure with things like Alice and Sven and Darling Deer, where you're just gaining a lot of lore, warding your board, re-readying your characters, it's just a really cool deck. And especially in a meta game right now where we're seeing a lot of these more higher end decks, like for example, Sapphire Steel and Sapphire Emerald being really big, it is nice to have a deck list as such where you can kind of just go under those decks and win before they start dropping the big bombs, as people call it, or the big characters that can essentially just win their game for them. So this is Amber Sapphire Aggro. I do love this deck. The next deck list I have, I'm pretty sure is 100% Lorcana deck list, or LD's list from his recent Artifacts podcast. I'm not super, like, I don't really test Amethyst Emerald a lot, but when I see an Amethyst Emerald list I really like, I do get very excited because I think the deck colors deserve better. It utilizes the Mother Gothel as a way to bounce characters, same with the Cusco, you know, being ways to kind of help you gain tempo back or push big bodies back into your opponent's hand or into their deck list in Cusco's sense. We have Prince Philip as a way to essentially board wipe, as we do also use the Malicious, Mean, and Scary card in here that allows, or that provides you with the ability to give all your opponent's characters 1 damage counter. No matter if they have ward or resist, they will always have a damage, and then Prince Philip just banishes all characters with damage on your opponent's side of the board, so that's a really great combo. Mother Knows Best. I love this card. I think it's stronger than ever right now by being in a meta where there's a lot of big characters that you don't want on the board, Mother Knows Best, just like Mother Gothel, can help push those back into your opponent's hand so that you can continue to just race and win the game. Webby Vanderquack being such a strong 1-cost character alongside her 4-cost shift target, who has Ward and is just so good in this meta right now where there's so many Sapphire decks going around. And if you're like me and just like can't win a die roll, she's also very strong, and that's why I love her, because I struggle to win die rolls, and obviously when you lose the die roll, right, you're essentially a turn behind, and Webby Vanderquack really helps you catch up. Her ability being whenever this character quests, if an opponent has more cards in their inkwell than you, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. Please don't put the card in your face. So that's Webby Vanderquack. I love how Clarabelle's here and all of her shift targets as well. Mother Gothel's shift is here, Cusco, and a big Monstro Whale. I think Bend to My Will is really important as well when you do utilize cards like You're Welcome and Mother's Knows Best, so that way you can just sing those cards, push some really big threats back into your opponent's hand, slap down the Bend to My Will, and then watch their hand just completely, watch them completely lose their hand. Even with things like Amethyst Chromacon as well, that allows both you and your opponents to draw. You can really fill up your opponent's hand, slap down the Bend to My Will, and then just watch it all go into the discard, which makes me very happy. So yeah, then next up we have Ruby Amethyst. This was also one that I saw recently on the on the Artifacts podcast. I think that this deck list is very strong. There's 2 different routes that I see a lot of Ruby Amethyst players taking, specifically the one with damage counters and utilizing the 1/3/1/4 3-cost Mother Gothel, who can move a damage counter each time a challenge is taken place. Or this version, which essentially you just ramp and then you play out your big body. So for example, like if you are trying to play a more aggressive route, you would go Diablo into Sisu, into Genie, into the Headless Horseman, use the Headless Horseman to banish one of their characters, whether that's their own Genie, whether that's something like their own Diablo, things like that. Banishing those 2 strength characters off their board. It could also be an Elsa too. I'm just looking at what the big characters are here. And then essentially, winning the game from there, right? Because now you have 4 characters on board that are all questing for 2, and your opponent has now lost tempo since you just banished one of their characters quite easily. Think Madame Medusa or Madame Medusa vibes, but not as strong. I would say the Headless Horseman's a little bit weaker than Madame Medusa, but I definitely think that the Headless Horseman has a space in the metagame, especially when we see things like Vincenzo Santorini running around and, Elsa and Genie being really popular too. I love this deck because it utilizes the new Elsa card, Exploring the Unknown, and it has her shift target, the Spirit of Winter, right? So it has 8 shift targets now for this big Elsa. It brings back the Iago, and I think that right now the Iago is not something that people are really teching for a lot of, or they're like, we're kind of like easing away from Vanish characters or having all of that tech in our decks to banish some Vanish characters because they're not as popular anymore. So I still like the Iago being here. It has the Dumbo as well. So yeah, I just really like this deck list. I think it's really cool, and I think it puts Ruby Amethyst in a really good spot that Ruby Amethyst unfortunately hasn't been in the past 2 sets, I would say. Next up, we have Emerald Steel Songs. So this deck list, again, I'm just getting all my decks from the Artifacts podcast, clearly. I after this, I'm pretty sure I'm done with them. But essentially, this deck list is LDs again. It is very strong, as you've seen me play this deck before with Alvin from Lore Gains. I just think that this deck list does a lot. I think the Clarabelles were a really good addition. This deck list just needed a little bit more card draw, so I do like the addition of Doc. I definitely see a place for Goliath. I'm never upset to use Goliath, especially when I'm playing against more higher end, Sapphire builds, but I definitely see the argument to put Clarabelle in this deck. And I definitely love how Webby Vanderquack gets us to big Clarabelle earlier. So I definitely love Webby. I definitely love Clarabelle. I definitely love Max Goof. I think this deck list uses a lot of really cool Floodborn characters. It has Ursula and Pete to remove songs and to just stop actions for a turn. And so, yeah, I just really like this deck list. As I said, if you've watched me play with Alvin from Lore Games, you'll see why I really enjoy this deck list, and I go into a lot more depth during that game. Next up we have Amethyst Sapphire. So Amethyst Sapphire definitely fell off this set. It's definitely not as strong as it used to be. However, it still has the potential to be a meta or tier, I wouldn't say tier 0. It's not that good anymore. But like a tier 2, tier 1 deck list. The reason why I would say Amethyst Sapphire is really falling off is because of the new Prince Philip card and the synergy it has with Malicious, Mean, and Scary. That's the name of the card, right? Let me just make sure. Yeah, Malicious, Mean, and Scary. Wow, that's the first time I've ever gotten that name right. So yay to that. But essentially what's cool about this deck list is now it's utilizing Tamatoa alongside the Junior Woodchuck Guidebook. Junior Woodchuck Guidebook, just saying here, banish this item, draw 2 cards, and then of course we can recycle that with Tamatoa so that we have a draw engine. I don't know if it's the most consistent draw engine, but it's definitely there. We're also utilizing the new Demona. Personally, as I continue to play, I watch Demona fall off more and more. We were very scared of her at the beginning of the metagame. However, she just is not as good as we had hoped or expected her to be, just because applying 3 cards or giving 3 cards to your opponent alongside yourself is very negative. I'll give you an example here. I'm thinking back to a game I recently played with one of my good friends who loves Sapphire Steel, and he had nothing in his hand, and I used the Demona to essentially wipe his board, right? I exerted all of his things sideways, and I wiped his board that way. However, by allowing him to draw into 3 cards, I really gave him 3 really big answers, with Sapphire Steel being 2 Hades and a Tinkerbell, I'm pretty sure. And I just lost the game from there, right? So I just think that Demona is really negative, unless your opponent already has 3 cards in their hand. So you need to be very careful. I do love how she's inkable, so that's why I kept her at 4 in a deck list like this. But I could definitely see myself going down to 2 and then putting in 2 of the new Ursula Whisper of Vanessa card. She's a 4/5 boost 1 5 cost character with the ability when this character has a card under her, she gets evasive and +1 lore, and she quests for 2, so essentially you give her evasive and the ability to quest for 3. So I really like her in that sense. I think she's really strong. She's just a better TikTok, so I definitely could see Amethyst Sapphire players going that route rather than the Demona route. But for now, I'm just, as I'm testing, I have the Demona. I just think Demona is she strong? She's not amazing, but she's strong. So I do like her for that sense. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of Blurple. However, like I said, I do think this deck list continues to fall off each day, unfortunately. Next up, we have Amber Emerald. I would say Songs or Circle of Life. This deck list I saw on Twitter. I don't remember whose deck list it was. I'm sorry. It was on Ink Decks. But I should have put it in the title, but it's okay. I just think that this deck list does a lot of really cool things, and a lot of people were like, oh, well, Emerald Amber is dead, right? The new Spooky Sight card just washes that deck list away. There's nothing they can do. And I don't think that's true, because this deck list essentially allows Amber Emerald players to just play out really huge bodies as early as turn 5, I would say. And the reason that is because of this new Mickey Mouse here. He's a 2/5 4 cost, a quest for 1, and it says here your other Amber characters get +2 willpower. So essentially you could have a 4/10 Stitch, a 2/8 Tramp, a 3/6 Raja, right? Very strong characters, and that's as soon as this character is put on the board. So he's very strong no matter what. And then he has another ability, which says here, while you have 2 or more other Amber characters in play, this character gains Singer 8. And so that's a lot of singing power, but the thing is, we have this Circle of Life here, which costs 8, and says here, play a character from your discard for free. So what we do is we utilize cards like Bobby Zimmerowski and Scrooge McDuck to discard these big bombs from our hand, whether that's Prince Philip or Clarabelle or Stitch, or even the Tramp sometimes too. Probably not as much. We don't care to do that as much as these other three, but you definitely could. And then we sing this Circle of Life card as soon as we find out that we have the ability to sing 8. And then we get to bring one of these really big characters back, whether that's Stitch drawing us 2 cards, if there's another 2 characters on our board, whether that's Clarabelle, who can give us the same hand size as our opponent, right? Because she draws us, it says here, at the end of your turn, if chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you, you may draw cards until you have the same number. Or this Prince Philip, right? And if you're ever able to sing off this Malicious, Mean, and Scary before you play out the Prince Philip, then you essentially just board wipe super duper early in the game, which essentially just win from there. So the high roll potential is really real, but I do think that no matter what, you're going to have a fun time with this deck, whether you're doing the Circle of Life shenanigans or not. There's definitely something for everyone. I like this Scar as well. I think that he's really strong in this deck. It says whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. And there's going to be quite a few damaged characters with Malicious, Mean, and Scary, so I definitely like him in that sense. So well done. Next up, we have my Amber Steel aggro list. Actually, I do love this list, and I want to talk about it a bit because it's definitely taken a bit of a twist from where Amber Steel aggro was beforehand. I think that the Sleepy is more exciting than Jim Deer, so I have Sleepy in here. I think that Raja alongside Rapunzel is always very strong, so I definitely wanted to keep Rapunzel. I wanted to keep Raja. Mowgli is obviously here to avoid any sort of board wipe, whether that's Spooky Scary or I keep saying Spooky Scary, Spooky Sight or Malicious, Mean, and Scary. We also have Elanwi alongside Aurora, alongside Rapunzel, alongside Tiana as different princesses. And Mulan as well. I forgot to mention Mulan. So, you know, being able to synergize with the Aurora really well. She's allowed to, she lets us play those characters out for 1 cost cheaper, which is always exciting. And yeah, I just think that this deck, again, it goes really fast, right? It does have answers to the Spooky Sight in Mowgli, which is great. It's got Pete to help us, again, you know, avoid those actions. I definitely don't think that Amber Steel is as strong as where it was in the previous set. However, I do think that Amber Steel aggro is still in a really good space. Like, I just think that it can go under these really heavy control decks very easily. And so I definitely can see myself playing something like this at an upcoming set championships. Or fingers crossed, I get to go to a DLC soon. I'm trying to make it work with my job, and I'm just trying to make it work everything. We'll see. I know that tickets are going out on sale tomorrow for Richmond, I think it's called. I don't remember. VA, Richmond, I don't know. Someone put in the comments, but yeah, I definitely would love to go to a DLC one day. I think I'm ready. I don't think I was ready in the past. I think I was definitely in a weird mental space, but I think I'm ready now. I do love this game again. Next up we have Purple Steel. Purple Steel, just of course being a deck list that's consistent, that can fight back the board when it needs to, that can draw you a lot of cards when it needs to. It's just a very, very good option. It's always been a good option. I think from set 1 until now, Purple Steel has always been like really strong. This deck list doesn't stray far away from what we've seen players like Thiago play in the past, or Tiago, I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. But it utilizes the new Hades card. We've gone down a bit on Demona. I was at 4 at first, and now I'm at 2, just because she can not be amazing in a lot of matchups, but she definitely has her moments in some. Hades mostly being for card draw, but can definitely be that board removal as well if necessary. I do love the new Black Heron card. I think she's a really good and really strong play right as early as turn 2. And going Captain Hook into Black Heron into Cobra is always really exciting for me. I do also love the new Lexington, as he has essentially evasive, but in the more run-down version of evasive, we have alert. And it says here, if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, this character can't ready. However, I find as we utilize cards like Strength of a Raging Fire and He Hurled a Thunderbolt, it's not very hard for us to have a really low hand count anyways. So Lexington usually does what he needs to do and re-readies himself. But yeah, again, Dumbo is still here, still thriving. I love Dumbo. I think that Dumbo is one of the strongest cards in the game just because he applies this lore pressure alongside some extra card draw. And the Elsa Genie combo is really great too. I could definitely see myself taking the White Rose out. I think White Rose is definitely like, she's kind of like meh. But I definitely love the instant lore game that comes from Cobra and White Rose. So she's still here for now, but she's definitely a flex spot that you could play around with. Next up we have like Mountain Dew Floodborn Blast is what I call it. I love Clarabelle, as some people know. I love Sapphire Emerald, but I just can't wrap my head around the fact that it is such a high roll deck. Now, definitely now it's a lot different because we're utilizing cards like Cinderella and because like we don't need the Clarabelle as much, but I've just found in the past, like, if I never got my Clarabelle with this deck, like, I basically lost the game because it was so weak without the Clarabelle. Maybe it's just the way I played it, but this is kind of where I'm at in terms of deck building with Floodborn Blast. I think that San Syed inspired this one. I don't exactly remember, but I just think that the Ink Runner is really cool. I like how You're Welcome can, you know, essentially make the Ink Runner a card that can draw us 3. I like how Clarabelle, you know, can help us draw into a really strong hand again. Prince Philip's combos there, as well with the Malicious, Mean, and Scary. We've got some spooky sites that we can utilize to get rid of those lower cost characters off the board. We also have Donald Duck again. I definitely think there's still a place for Donald Duck. I just really don't like giving my opponent card draw, so I don't know if I love him. We've got I already mentioned Clarabelle. We've got the new Cinderella, where it says here at the end of your turn, if you played a princess character this turn, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down to draw a card. So she helps us to get to 6 and more ink very fast. And then we also have Hades as well as one of our best board removal or card removal engines in the game. So this is definitely just a generic build of Emerald Sapphire, but I do think that Emerald Sapphire is in a really good place with this new Cinderella card, so I do think that this deck is still very strong as well, and with the Prince Philip too. And then personally, the deck I've been loving this set, the deck that I will probably be very high on throughout the whole set 10 metagame, is Sapphire Steel. I definitely think that this is tier 1, if not tier 0. It is just so strong. It does things very fast. It starts off slow, but then you kind of just win in the end because you have so many great answers to everything. It's like so strong, and I just want to go talk about it a bit. So again, we're utilizing the new Cinderella card as a way to get up to our 6 cost characters a lot sooner, whether that's Goliath or Tinkerbell. We have a lot of princess synergy in this deck, so that's another reason why I really enjoy it, with Cinderella, Kita, Jasmine, and Namari all being princesses. So Cinderella can stick on the board. Essentially, you can continue to use her ability like throughout the upcoming turns as you continue to lay out more princesses on the board. We have the Headless Horseman, who's essentially our casino card. He is just such a high roll, such a gamble, but he is so much fun to play with. And I think needs to be a little bit of spark and joy that comes with Disney Lorcana, at least in my opinion, as I continue to play in my millionth game of this silly card game. I definitely love the gambling aspect that comes with the Headless Horseman, and the idea that, like, you know, if I can discard some actions, like, we're just gonna essentially like do so much damage on the board. I think that Vincenzo Santorini's always been really strong, and I do love using him. I love how Tinkerbell Giant Fairy still has a place in the meta. And I love how He Hurled a Thunderbolt can't remove her as easily as Zeus could, so that's definitely why she's still prominent in the meta. But yeah, going like, for example, Sail into Cinderella, into Tinkerbell, into Hades, into Vincenzo is like such a, like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like such a insane sequence or ramp, is that how we say it? It's such an insane ramp of cards, and you just kind of win from there, right? You've got Spooky Sight to help you catch up if you need to in terms of aggro decks. You've got Beyond the Horizon and Goliath as ways to draw into new cards. You've got Namari, who can also support a draw engine as well by filtering out older cards or filtering out cards you don't need and drawing you into new cards. And same thing with Cinderella, right? So I just think that this deck is in a perfect space. I love Develop Your Brain. I love Vision of the Future, being able to find me any answers I need. And I just think that, like, that's why I'm so high on this deck. And that's probably why you're looking at this deck and being like, whoa, this one's, like, a lot better than the others. It's because I've had a lot of time to test with this deck. And I just, like, I love it. Like, it's not Amber Sapphire, which, unfortunately, but it's just something, like, I'm such a meta chaser. It is just something that is so strong. Feels broken when I play it. I love the gambling. I love the princesses. I love having card draw. I love having removal. If you're going to play Disney Lorcana set 10 and you want something really strong, you play this deck. Trust me, it has the Lorcana Theo stamp of approval. But anyways, thank you so much for coming to this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. I love talking about deck lists, so feel free to subscribe, as I will definitely be doing so more often. Again, if you haven't checked out my previous videos, go check those out. On my Twitch, I recently streamed a unboxing, which did not go as amazing as I had hoped. But if you haven't checked that out, make sure to check that out as well. And don't feel free to follow me on all my social medias. Check me out anytime. Leave me a comment in the comments below if you have any questions or if you just love this video. I love the comments. I love the interaction. So thank you again, everyone, so much for getting me past 200 subscribers right now. And I can't wait to see where this channel goes in the future. So again, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Peace.